We are so incredibly excited about this final panel. We've talked about the through line of these panels that we've heard so far today, from education, affordability, federalism, and at the root of all of this is, I think, the topic of this next conversation, which is dignity in our politics. And I think we can all agree that is something we all care deeply about and that impacts each and every one of us. So thank you for being here. I want to introduce again Chair of the National Governors Association, Governor Stitt of this great state of Oklahoma. And incoming Chair of the NGA, Governor Wes Moore of Maryland. And Dr. Tim Shriver, co-founder of UNITE and chairman of Special Olympics International. Thank you all so much for being here. I want to start this conversation about dignity in our politics by defining what it means in this moment and really how challenging it is. Governor Moore, I want to start with you. This is a moment where you have really both parties saying, we want fighters. We want people who are going to go out, who know how to be tough. How do you, as a governor, balance that, fighting for the issues that you care about, while also making sure that you are instilling dignity, working towards that, and not pulling punches? How do you walk that line in this moment?
You know, I think it's important to remember that people want fighters, and I know, just like, you know, I'm a soldier by background, but I think people want us to fight for them and not necessarily always have to fight other people. Like, people want to know that the people who we represent, that we will always be able to support and advocate for them and make sure they're getting everything that they need. But that doesn't always mean that you have to be in an argumentative posture with everyone else, because I think at the end of the day, people just want you to be able to get things done. And, you know, I think about it where, you know, this is so unique because as governors, this idea of dignity in politics in Washington, D.C. almost feels like a choice. Do you want dignity or do you want politics? As governors, that's not how we operate. These two things sync. And, you know, where you know, I know in my time as the governor, we've been able to get things done like raising a minimum wage. We've been able to make a child tax credit permanent, have the most aggressive push to end child poverty in our state's history, and you know, have amongst the fastest drop of violent crime anywhere in the United States of America. And of all the bills that we've introduced in our administration that we've gotten passed, 97% of them have been passed bipartisan. And so I think people want us to be able to fight for them and get results for them. But they also understand that that doesn't necessarily mean having another political party and doing that performative piece of politics, making that the hallmark of what you're actually trying to get done.
Governor Stitt, how do you see dignity in our politics in this moment? How do you walk that line?
Well, if I've learned anything as governor, and when I came here, got involved with the National Governor Association, what I can tell Americans is that we agree on more than we disagree. And that's very inspirational. Like Governor Stein earlier he was talking about the meeting we had, talking about immigration, and we were shocked that we were all agreeing on border security. And I wish every American, we actually talked about that in the meeting. There was probably, I don't know, 15 governors in there, and we were like, I wish everybody could see this, because we were all saying, okay, yeah, we need to know who's coming in our country. We need to have secure borders. And now what's the end game? We need to have workforce permits, and we think the governor should handle that. I'm closer to the agriculture community in Oklahoma, to the construction, the hospitality. I should be able to match employer with employee. And if they're chasing the American dream, if they're contributing to our economy, we're overthinking this issue. And then if you don't have a job, then that's who we need, doesn't need to be in our country, right? And so, and then Governor Moore is closer to the crab industry and the fishery industry and the jobs of Maryland, and he should be in control of that. And Governor Landrieu in Louisiana's. So we believe that the states have those solutions, and it's amazing when you're there. And I'm like, the governor of New York agrees with me on this issue? I mean, I wish people could see that. And then the other thing that I think is that I've learned is that some people in this room hate me because I have an R by my name. Some people hate him because he has a D by his name. And I know Wes Moore. I know his wife, Dawn, and his family, and he loves Maryland, and he's an American trying to do what's best for Maryland. And back to this federalism idea, I think that's why we all agree that this is an important conversation to have as Americans, that Maryland is different than Oklahoma, and we're all trying to move our country forward. And I think that's something that people are craving to see.
I have to say, there has been an extraordinary amount of agreement on this stage today, and that maybe has been the biggest. And it's just been incredible. Dr. Shriver, you actually say that dignity in politics is practical. Explain what you mean by that. How does being dignified help get a bridge built, a budget passed, help get things done?
Well, first of all, it's a huge honor to be on stage with these two governors. It's a huge honor to be in this room, as you said, Kristen, where we're hearing people actually solving problems. I think what we're discussing today is that there's a new issue in American politics. And it's not the same as bridge building or fisheries or immigration or education, all of which are important. But there's a new issue that's tearing the heart of Americans apart. And that is the polarization and the contempt that's being fed to us by politics in ways that actually distort the other issues. What you heard today is agreement. What we hear on the news at night, what we hear on social media is hatred and contempt and dehumanization. It's leading to increases in violence. This is a serious issue. The governors in this room have addressed it. When politics becomes hateful and contemptuous, it contributes to the increase in the risk of violence. It's leading to the breaking apart of our families. I've seen this in my family. Families that can no longer talk together, not because they really differ that much on the issue, but because they become so inflamed by anger and hostility about the R or the D. It's leading to massive distortions in our capacity to solve problems. So this is an issue that Americans care about deeply. We did a poll on this. They care about it almost as much as they care about the cost of living. And so they're looking for leaders who will define for them a path forward. Not to give up, as Governor Moore said, commitment to their constituencies, but to give up hatred and contempt for the other. As we've said many times, you can't love your country and hate your fellow country people. It just doesn't add up. And Americans know that. So what we're trying to do here with the National Governors Association is build an ongoing capability that channels the energy of governors who are not elected as problem makers, they're elected to be problem solvers, right? So if you only focus on politics, as every governor has said, you become a problem maker. If you actually figure out how to treat the other side with dignity, you become a problem solver, and we're going to try to build that into a capability here that's sustainable.
Governor Stitt, pick up on that point, and what do you think the governors here at the NGA understand about dignity in politics? We're having this conversation that sometimes we don't necessarily see in the nation's capital. And can you bring it to folks on Capitol Hill, for example?
Well, first off, Tim Shriver has become a good friend, and he came to Oklahoma, I don't know, it was 2019, 2020 when I was first elected, and introduced this dignity index to us. And he's trained all of our superintendents in education, our higher ed. We've rolled it out through my cabinet, throughout state government, really giving us a scorecard and a way to talk to one another. And I just think it's so important. I mean, I have tremendous respect for him. Obviously, his uncle was president of the United States, but his mother started the Special Olympics. Yeah. And his dad started Peace Corps and for President Kennedy. And so this is a guy that understands service and understands what this means to unite our country. And so really I've just been kind of following his lead. And I think the biggest thing in politics, it is an industry of its own. I tell people, if you're focused on the next generation, not the next election, it's pretty easy the decisions to make. But instead, it's these caucus, it's just I'm shirts or skins. And that's what's so disappointing for when we elect people that don't have the integrity to do what's right for the next generation.
Dr. Shriver, since you raise it, Governor Stitt, let's talk about the Dignity Index, what it is It's an 8-point scale from contempt to dignity. Explain exactly what it means and how can it be practically applied? How can Governor Moore, how can Governor Stitt practically
So
apply?
both of these gentlemen know it well. The Dignity Index is an 8-point scale that actually gives us a map of our response options. So if Governor Stitt and I disagree, as maybe we might on an issue or two, I have a map on the Dignity Index of the ways in which I can treat him when I disagree. I want more federal protection, for instance, for children with intellectual disabilities. He might think that's misguided, better to have it at the state. I do not have to demonize him to get my issue heard. In fact, the lower I move on the scale, the less likely I am to get my issue prevail, because all I end up doing is attacking him as opposed to advocating for the issue. So the irony is that when we see the index give us this map of options, I can be a good listener, I can be humble, I can be superior and hateful. These are all on the index. So you can kind of look at it, and the most important thing about it, and this is where Governor Stitt has been such an advocate, and Governor Cox as well, is we invite people just to ask themselves this question. The last time you disagreed with someone politically, how did you treat them? Not did you prevail, or just how did you treat them? And when we ask ourselves that question, we can see on the index, well, geez, maybe I could have been a little better. Maybe I could have treated them with dignity. So dignity is not a substitute for accountability. It's not a substitute for passion. It's actually a pathway, and the index kind of gives us a pathway to show how we can do that. And we want to be able, with the NGA, to provide technical assistance to new governors. You know, I think we'll have 18 new governors this year, something like that. Every one of them has a whole new team, new political analysts, new legislative leaders, new education. So all of them could benefit from learning this language of how to treat people with dignity if they want to get things done.
Governor Moore, how do you apply the Dignity Index? Is it something that you use, that you turn to, that you rely on?
I think it's something that, first I think about how it relates to all of our lives, putting the politics aside. And as a person of faith, I think when you talk about what does a dignity index look like, it's very much rooted in a sense of faith.
Yeah.
Do unto others as you would hope that others would do unto you. This idea that you can have faith, but knowing that in James 2, it says, faith without work is dead. That you must do the work. Actively reach out. Actively focus on how are you going to extend a hand to your fellow person. And I think about, for example, we made Maryland the first state in the country that now has a service year option for all of our high school graduates, where every high school graduate has a chance to have a paid year of service to the state of Maryland. And they can do whatever they want to do. The thing we just tell them is, tell us what makes your heart beat a little bit faster. And we're going to give you a paid opportunity to do it. And it's been tremendous in terms of workforce development. It's been a tremendous tool in terms of getting people the skills and the training to get into the workforce. It couples with the fact that we've quadrupled the amount of apprenticeship and trade slots that we have in our state. But what it's also done is, at this time of this political divisiveness and political vitriol, we just believe firmly that service will save us. And if you give people an opportunity to work on something big together, a big project, a big initiative, that service is sticky. And so we want to be able to show dignity, not just in word, but dignity in practice. Yeah. Because the ones who do it are generally the ones who now have developed a lifelong habit and lifelong connections that will guide them.
Governor Stitt, let's delve into this idea of service. Is Oklahoma looking at a program similar to the one that Governor Moore just laid out? How do you see service as a part of building dignity in our politics, adhering to the Dignity Index?
That's something I've learned from Governor Moore. I think it's a brilliant idea. My son joins the military in the National Guard. Kind of funny story that we went to his swearing-in ceremony, and he promises us joining the Army, and so he promises to obey the President of the United States, defend the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And because my 18-year-old son was also joining the Oklahoma National Guard, with his hand in the air, he promises to obey the commands of the governor.
I love it.
So that's the service we're talking about. But anyway, whether it's military service, we love that. I mean, there's a lot of 18-year-old knuckleheads that need to either go into the military or do service or realize that the world is bigger than, you know, their high school or what's right there in front of them, right? Or living for the weekend. And so I love this idea. And his story, Wes Moore's story of service saved him and the things that he was able to accomplish. It's very inspirational for all of us. And that's just back to his American dream story. And it's going to be some freshman in high school right now in Oklahoma's American dream story because they're going to choose to do service. We've talked about it in our State of the State. We haven't put the parameters around it like he has in Maryland yet, but it's something that hopefully we get a chance to do and create an opportunity. There's also an NGO that's working to actually take kids from Oklahoma and send them to California or New York City. And it's an exchange of students either after high school or college. I can't remember exactly. I don't know if they're in the room here. But that's also something that we're making available for young people because we know we get a chance to travel the world and realize how much you learn by meeting other people from other backgrounds, and that's part of the process that your kids learn when they go off to college or they do these service things.
Well, as we've been talking about, Dr. Shriver, when we think about service, we do have to talk about your family. Sergeant Shriver, your father, helped to create the Peace Corps, which is still thriving to this day. How do you see service fitting into this broader call that you have for restoring dignity in our politics? Is there still the same hunger and space for it?
Well, I think there is hunger, but our political leaders need to step up. And that's what I think Governor Moore is saying. It can't just be words. Those 18-year-olds, a lot of them are deeply discouraged about the country. They're deeply saddened about their own futures. They're deeply anxious about the institutions that surround them, the schools, the law enforcement, the political institutions. We are raising a generation of children who we have made discouraged, which is shocking. And it's our responsibility. We have these short-term gains in political elections by using contempt and anger and hatred. And maybe sometimes that wins. We have to be honest. Sometimes it wins. But the cost, to our children, to the willingness to serve, to the hopefulness that service will make a difference, to the belief in the country that comes from when I serve it, I will make it better, all that is at stake in our small and petty and narrow view of how we manage our exchange and our relationships with one another. So we have to be honest that this group of governors here that talks that, it's all nice, it's good talk, but it's deeply serious. And the future of the country is at stake. We have more than half of the Americans for the first time who don't believe America can solve its problems. That's outrageous. And it's on us. We have created the America that makes our young people discouraged about America. And that's correctable. We can change that culture. And the men and women in this room have the power to change that culture. And these men are taking it seriously, in my view. And whether we agree or not is not the issue. Whether we commit to each other with the trust and confidence that we can build a better country when we treat each other with dignity, that's at stake. And we have to choose what side we're on. People will say all the time to me, don't you see what wins? And I say, yeah, sometimes that wins. But you got to choose what side you're on. And you can be on the side of contempt and dehumanization, or you can be on the side of dignity and hope. And we're asking political leaders to choose.
Governor Moore, I wonder in this moment where we are talking about affordability, where people are saying all across the country in various ways, some of them are struggling, how do you commit to use that word, commit to invest in young people in service? Is there a challenge there? What would you say to the folks in your state who would say, can we afford this?
Well, I think it's to show how can we not afford to do this. Because if you lose a generation then forget about everything else you're doing because it won't matter.
Right.
It won't matter. And I think that you show how these two things actually are synonymous and actually how they work together. I think about the service year option that we have for the state of Maryland, that we are very proud that other states now are looking and modeling and building off of, that we made sure that that was a paid year of service for a reason. Because if it was not, you knew that automatically a huge portion of the population could not participate.
Right.
So make it a paid year of service, and also make sure that at the end of it, each one of the students that do it gets $6,000 at the end of their year of service, in addition to all the other benefits they get from it. They can put that towards college if they choose. They can put that towards trade or apprenticeship programs. They can put it towards down payment on a house. It is their money. They have earned it. And so I think that we have to be able to say that we can focus on bringing down the cost of home ownership, building more homes, and making sure that people feel a vested interest and have a sense of ownership. Because that's not just good for their pockets, that's also good for their psychology, and it makes them feel a sense of ownership in the society that they're a part of. That we want to be able to, as we've done, invest in our entrepreneurs and also have an education system that is teaching our young people how not just to be employees, but how to be employers. The reason for that is because we want them to feel that sense of ownership. So you can actually address an affordability issue and also say that this is going to have long-term benefits for our society and the psychology of actually bringing everybody together.
Governor Stitt, we have to address one of the issues at the root of this. You have all touched on it, which is social media. Social media is a place where so often hatred and toxicity and vitriol is fostered. How do you address that, particularly for our young people? This is something that we've discussed with some of the other panels, but it is really, I think, at the root of trying to restore dignity in our politics.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough. I mean, we've got freedom of speech in this country, and so I mean, I think organizations like this, sharing with people. It's hard to hate someone you spend time with. I always say that. It's easy to, be a Fox News, consumer or MSNBC and villainize the other side. It's easy to take shots at, the person that's on the other team, or your governor, or your senator, or your president. And I just think that's a societal problem that we're going to have to deal with. Me personally. Something I don't really read all that. I mean, if you want to feel better about yourself, go read what they say about me online. Okay? But our Christmas parties, my team, my staff, it's really fun. The only time I read it, I do a mean tweets, like a Saturday Night Live deal, and they get all the mean tweets from the year, and I get in front of the camera and I read it, and we play it for our Christmas party, and everybody makes fun of my eyebrows. It's unbelievable. My mom really likes my eyebrows. She says they look good. But I mean, you're asking a question. I mean, how do you keep people from villainizing one another? And I think part of it is the Dignity Index and what Tim Shriver's doing across the country, and it's organizations like this that are demonstrating to people that we can have honest conversations and debate about which direction we think we're going to go, and that's healthy. Sam Walton, founder of Walmart, in his book, he talks about if everybody around the board table is thinking the same way, nobody's thinking. And he wants dissent. And in business, we always want people challenging our ideas because that makes us better. That's part of our American democracy. And I think we've lost that somehow. And it's whether you blame it on social media or whatever, but it certainly needs to be addressed. And I think the pendulum's going to swing back. I really do. I think it's going to come back.
Well, and I have to say, I think we absolutely have to find a way of making sure we can respect the First Amendment. And we have to find a way to say, but we have to be able to do more. I look at our state where, we've signed legislation that is banning cell phone use for students bell to bell, because I don't want our teachers competing with Mark Zuckerberg for their kids' attention, right? And we've also been able to say we're banning AI from usage in campaign ads, because you know what? If you're just going to rely on technology to make your case, then maybe you should not be the person that should be representing the people, particularly when this technology is used to manipulate. But there has to be more that we have to be able to do. And And I agree with you that it is both social media, but also it is just media as a whole. Because when we do have media, and I would say both cable networks, and then also the way you are watching these billionaires who are now buying local television to be able to push their own agendas, there is a danger in the idea that when people are just looking for information, that what they're doing is they're just getting biased opinions. And they're not looking to be educated. They're looking to be validated. And there is something that we have to be very careful about the way information is shared, and how do we have honest, truthful conversations with our people about how we're going to lead our country forward.
Dr. Shriver, how do you see the solution to
Look,
what happens?
you mentioned my upbringing. I was raised in a family that believed if you saw a problem, you tried to fix it. Okay? We got a problem in the way in which we treat each other in this country. Politics, media, social media, we got a problem. Here's how we change it. We change. That's how this country changes things. We did this with the word retard, for instance, excuse me for using it, the Special Olympics. Everybody said it's a normal word. Why bother? 80% of people use it. Almost everybody in the room probably used it. I used it as a kid. Why are you going to change that? Within 5 years, the whole country had shifted. Because they found out that we had a problem. They didn't even know they had a problem, but they found out that it hurt people, that it damaged families, that it stigmatized people. And so all of a sudden, if Governor Moore got up and gave a speech that used the R word, he'd be like embarrassed. And 20 years ago, he would have been validated. So you can change the incentives in a system when individual people lead from a different place. And we've done this before as a country over and over again. Culture changes. We don't need everybody. We just need 20 or 30% of the country to say that's not cool anymore. You know what? I'm not going to like that tweet when you posted about Governor Stitt's eyebrows. No, but it's a serious issue. I'm not going to click on that. And everybody here has but you all have the choice, and you all know, and the political leaders here know it. Well, I might. But here's the point: as Americans, we can wait for public policy. It's important. We can wait for the president or senators. It's important. But the reason this is such an important moment here is that these governors have the option to lean into trying to shift the culture around not making this cool anymore. It shouldn't be cool to dehumanize another American. And right now it is. Right now you win when you dehumanize. That shouldn't be.
And I think one of the big questions people will have around this discussion, one of you raised this, but Governor Stitt, let me put this to you and get you to weigh in. Is it politically viable? Is it a strategy that can win? Is dignity a strategy that can win? Do you think, for example, a Republican candidate running for president in 2028 could win using the Dignity Index?
You know, I would think so. The problem with our political system today is...
No, you're supposed to say yes.
Sorry. I think the pendulum is swinging. Of course, you get to the general election, it wins. But the problem is you got to get through the primaries. And so sometimes, you know, the left, the danger to Moore is he's going to get outflanked on his left. The danger to Stitt is he gets outflanked on his right. And but I do think it wins in the end. And I think that the pendulum is swinging back to a statesman, a Ronald Reagan, someone who believes in limited government, lower taxes. I'll continue. I don't think we sacrifice our principles of federalism and the things that we've talked about today. But as you can see, Governor Moore and I like each other, and we're buddies, and we can banter back and forth between what we think is the right thing to do. And what's amazing to me is we agree on 90% of the stuff, because what are we really trying to do? We're trying to improve education, infrastructure, access to health care. We're trying to grow our economies. We're trying to create the right workforce. These are all things that we can solve. And Governor Scott and Governor Stein were talking about those issues that it's just amazing to me. I think when you're in your corners, most people think that all Republicans hate immigrants, right? Most people think all Democrats want open borders. And that's simply not true. When you get with us, we literally, there's just maybe some small differences, but as a general rule, we are really trying to move our states forward. At least that's what I've experienced. Now, I've never been in Congress, So we can poo-poo on them all we want, but governors just got where it's at.
And I want to ask you this before I get to the last question. Hypothetically, Governor Moore, could a Democratic nominee for president in 2028 win using the Dignity Index?
Yes.
Yeah.
And honestly, and because I think that the vast majority of these people in this country, they do not define themselves as a Democrat or Republican first.
Right.
The vast majority of people don't live like that. They're just trying to make sure their family's okay. They just try to make sure that they have a chance to pass something off to their children besides debt. They just want to make sure that if they happen to get sick, that doesn't have to be a catastrophic incident for 3 generations to come. You know, the vast majority of people do not look at the world that way. You know, I think that oftentimes in Washington, they think the world is political science 101. When the vast majority of people in this country, they think the world is just economics 101. They just want to make sure that we're providing fair opportunities and real pathways to work and wages and wealth. And so I just think that the people who want to center their time dividing us and center their time with the hyperbolic, hyper-political, mantras of the day, they will very quickly find themselves on an island by themselves, because the people who just want to focus on getting things done for the people of our individual jurisdictions, I think you might lose the political scientists and the political hacks, but you know who you'll never lose? The people. And that's how you win elections.
Final question to all of you. Dr. Shriver, I'm going to start with you. Who is someone right now who you think exemplifies dignity in our politics?
Well, that's an easy one. I think the political leaders you've seen on the stage, or Governor Meyer talking about what he's doing. I mean, all the governors who've been here have modeled this. And I think they've modeled it in a way that is tough-minded. I think that's what's important. But I think really my uncle, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, said in 1968, that economics is important. A lot of mention here about school to work and economic viability and so on, which is obviously hugely important. But economics doesn't measure the quality of our marriages. It doesn't measure the hopefulness we have about the future. Economics doesn't tell us whether our playgrounds are safe. It doesn't tell us whether our hope is burning bright. There's another issue in the country, and I think the law enforcement officers, the teachers, the emergency room doctors, who, you show up tonight and something's really wrong, and they're there for you.
Yes.
And the anesthesiologist will hold your hand and say, I got you. Those are the people that are living the deepest values of our country. The Special Olympics athletes who give everything they've got, the volunteer who gives them a chance. Those are the best of America. And our political leaders, I think, want to be their leaders, the leaders for those Americans. But we've separated our politics from the values of our country in many respects. And I think what you're seeing here is a commitment of men and women who want to try to reconnect back to the core of our country and the values of Americans, and do it in a way that makes politics something to which people aspire and are inspired by as opposed to discouraged by.
Governor Moore, who's someone who you think embodies dignity in our politics?
Well, I agree. I have such a deep respect for my gubernatorial colleagues inside this work. But I want to touch on something that Tim, who's another hero of mine in this work, I think of someone like a gentleman named Prince Ames, who fought in Bunker Hill and fought in Concord, an African American and indigenous person who was fighting for a country that did not even see him as a full human being yet. And he knew that he was willing to sacrifice for this country because he was willing to sacrifice for the hope of its future. And maybe that one day this country would see his children. Maybe this country would one day even see his grandchildren in a way that they didn't see him. And I think about him because I now serve as the 63rd governor of the state of Maryland and the first black governor in the history of the state of Maryland. But also, I am Prince Ames's great-great-great-great-great-grandson.
Wow.
And he was willing to sacrifice for the hope of us. And I think when you're watching people who every single day are getting up and doing the work, they're not looking for recognition. They're not looking for statues. They're just simply a belief in the greatest experiment in world history, which is the United States of America. Those are my role models, because these are people who are willing to fight for all of our better angels.
Governor Stitt, final word to you as the chair of the NGA.
I mean, everything this guy just said, I'm just going to leave it at what Wes Moore said. That was amazing.
Smart move.
No, I've got a lot of respect for Wes Moore. And one thing that I think people would like to know is that we were in Washington, D.C. at the winter meeting before we went to the White House. We kicked all the staff out. Yeah. And me and Wes Moore had a time of prayer together, a Republican governor and a Democrat governor, before we went to represent our state. And so those are the things you wish people could see, the heart of the different parties, that I think is just amazing. And I think we just got to keep talking about it. To Shriver's point, we should keep modeling this. And listen, I am from the reddest governor from the reddest state. And here's a Democrat governor from a blue state. And I just think that's fun for people to see that, hey, you know, I'm gonna be talking about our policies, but we can do it in such a great, respectful way. And I think that's healthy for our country, and it's healthy for people to see. And I think it's inspirational for people to see as well.
I think.
And can I highlight one thing, by the way? I'm on stage with the governor from Oklahoma, and I'm the one wearing cowboy boots.
I noted that. Well, you can't have a more powerful ending than that. So thank you for such an incredibly powerful conversation and for this message, this call to action, quite frankly, about restoring dignity in our politics and this incredible image of bipartisanship. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.